we sense that people don't comfort well and that people center themselves in just about everything that we tell them, or at least I've noticed that. When you have a loss, when there's something really bad going on, instead of really just being able to be with someone and comfort someone, people feel like they've got to tell a story about themselves and center themselves in that.
Yeah.
And, when you're going through those things, to share those really deep things and then to hear that, some of us just shut off from sharing because it's like, I can't deal with this person on top of what I'm going through.
We deal with that with grief. A lot of people with grieving, even like obviously, we lost your child, and then you go around someone else and they're telling you their feelings, and you don't even understand your own feelings that are going on. So when you have someone else telling you, you're like, I have no idea how to respond. Should I be comforting them? Should I be like, but it has to do with you. It has to do with your baby, so it's a very weird situation. Like, it is awkward, and it gets uncomfortable, and it gets very confusing of like, well, who do I go to that's actually going to listen to me? That's actually going to, validate my feelings. And it's nice to hear other people are like, when people say like, oh, this hurts me, that's one thing. But then sometimes people offload it to the grieving parent, and that can be so extremely hard. And I remember going back to work and people that like, yeah, they were around my whole pregnancy. I've known them for years, but at the same time, I'm grieving. So when I'm just trying to put the face on and just make it through my day and just, trying to get through. And I'm like, this is me, like just getting through as much as I possibly can. And then somebody comes and they just start crying, and and I'm just standing there like, I don't even know, because like, and people are saying things like, you're so strong and you're so brave, and look at you, you're not crying right now, and all this stuff. And it's just kind of like, but you have no idea how much it took me to get here, to not be crying, to be standing here in this moment without like just shedding off all my feelings that I feel right now. And you literally don't have anything to say. And you kind of walk away like, I have to get the hell out of here. Like it's that feeling of like, I have to leave, I have to escape, and you can't escape your own life. You know what I mean? But it's everywhere. And so that was something I noticed right away. Friends, family, everybody. And I know they didn't do it. It was nothing bad intention, and I know they had to get off their stuff, but they probably needed to do it to somebody else. Find a therapist, find a family member, a friend, someone else to offload their feelings, and not to the person that's actually dealing with the worst thing they could possibly deal with, because we're lost. We're so confused, and there's no one near us helping to navigate our feelings, navigate what's going on. And we're in shock. Shock lasts a long time. Like, you're going through the steps and people come and tell you, oh, the steps of grieving. It means nothing to a lost parent, because you go through them repeatedly for the rest of your life. And they're all not in order. It's not like this. It doesn't go like the chart says. It doesn't go like they tell you. It is the most weirdest, randomest thing. And it can hit you at any moment. And if nobody tells you that, it's very confusing, because you have so many moments where you doubt your own feelings. Like, maybe I shouldn't be feeling this way, because no one's there to tell you everything that you feel is exactly what you're supposed to feel at that time. And so it's like, yes. I think there's that big communication gap where we should know how to support other people that are going through it, because it's confusing. It's just a whole nother world.
We've never been taught how to do it. I mean, what do people do? They go up and they say, I'm so sorry for your loss. And hopefully they don't do any of those stupid tropes, but God had a plan, or God wanted an angel, or anything like that. But, just, it's kind of like, well, that's at least one right thing to say. But
right. And I think they don't know that you can just put a period there.
Right.
I'm so sorry for your loss. But that is enough, because you know what? There's nothing to say. Some things are just felt. And I know that you're feeling hurt. We're human. We can pick up on that, right? And so, I'm so sorry for your loss, period. And depending on your level of comfort and who you are, a hug is sufficient. It's okay. And, I think it stems from people, they love you and they want to make you feel better, but there's just no way, short of going up to wherever you believe this baby is and bringing them back down. There's nothing you can do. But I think there's one theory, and I'm sure you've all heard of it. It's called the ring theory.
Yeah.
And maybe if you haven't, I might get a piece of paper and draw a picture. But so in dealing with grief, one way to like help people understand is, you draw a ring and there's like a bullseye here, and then there's a ring around it and a ring around it. And so in the middle is who the event happened to. So, the lost parents, the sibling right there in the middle. And then around, it's the grandparents, the aunts and uncles, the friends who are family. And then it just keeps getting wider in your social circle. And the idea is it dumps out from the center. So you can dump your feelings out from the center to everyone in those outer rings, because you need that support. But the person in the circle closest to the middle, so my mom, my dad, my sister, they dump their emotions out to their next ring, not in to me. And that's the idea of the ring, is you don't put your feelings on the people feeling the grief, because they can't carry your feelings too. And so I wish that was shown so much more, because when you show people the visual, of a piece of paper with the circles, they get it. They're like, oh, okay, I get it. So like I give support in and I dish grief out, support in, grief out, so that the people who are grieving can get the support they need. And I can support the people who are grieving. It's the best theory. And I wish more people like knew it and shared it.
I do know that on our Safe Sleep group and in our VBAC group, we bump that post a lot. And I can actually, probably for you, Danielle, I'll send you the link and you can link it up with this video if you want. But it's something that we have to remind people of, even people who have seen that a bunch of times. Stop it. Stop dumping this on the person who can barely speak right now. They're hurting. Stop it. Stop centering yourself.
Well,
Like,
I mean,
take the water bottle and just go, don't do that. Don't do that.
I mean, I don't want people to feel extremely badly if they've done it in the past, because what happens is you encounter someone who's had some kind of traumatic event in their life, and if you don't frequently, what you'll do is you'll be like, what is this event like? You'll think of something that happened to your own life. It'll bring up feelings. You're having feelings. They're having feelings. And you're like, what do I do with these feelings I have? I need to do something. So your first impulse is, oh, look, there's this person over here. And I'll put I'll talk about my feelings to them. They're not your therapist. They're in trouble. They're struggling. They are the wrong person to put these feelings on. So sit there. If you have those feelings, you're like, oh, I'm having feelings. You're like, this is not the time. Put your feelings in a little box, take them home with you, open them up there. That's what you do with them.
Yeah, unless you're asked by that person, unless the person who's grieving is like, tell me how you survived whatever. And then that's the door that's open for you. They want to connect in that way. Or if you're in a group that's focusing on processing those feelings and being together in your grief, okay. But I think, people do need to know when it's proper to just focus on the other person and be okay not sharing too.
Right. That's such a good point. Yeah. Because, and Danielle, I think, too, like when you first lose it, you do want to reach out to other people who have like survived this, because everything's black and you can't see where you are and you just don't. One, you didn't think that you would actually live after your baby dies. I don't know about you, Danielle, but like, that's something that still shocks me, is that I really thought, and I believe in God. It's okay if anyone else doesn't, but like, I really thought he would like give me a little door and I could just walk through and I would die too. And it didn't happen. And I know it seems silly, right, to think that I really believed that would happen, but it didn't. And so when you're just sitting there like, I was supposed to die too, I'm still breathing, but I don't know how to live. You're searching, and you'll search for anybody to try and make that connection, because now you've got to live. There's no there's no choice. And so you reach out and seek those connections from anyone. But I think it's important too, like, if you reach out to other lost parents, you have to be mindful of their grief, right? Because, they may be a year out, but I mean, it still hurts. It still hurts bad. And they have to be in a place where they're ready to relive the worst day of their life or the worst months of their lives. And that is the door, but we also have to be mindful of, just, I guess, everybody's boundaries and where they are in their process of healing.
Yeah.
And I want to make an amendment. Healing is lifelong because it doesn't ever stop. You're never fully healed.
Yeah. No, it's true. And you know what? That's exactly what I think people don't understand about lost parents is that when our babies die or our children die, like we really struggle. The first thought that pops in our head is like how, why, like, we start questioning all these things, but we think exactly like that, where you think, I'm not supposed to be alive. Like, if they're not here, I'm not supposed to be here. Like there's like this weird bond, like that it's so hard to explain, but you really believe like if they were supposed to go, I was supposed to go. And so you question every day when you get up, like, why am I alive? But they're not alive. Like I remember spending at least the first, I don't even know, couple years or something, where every morning where I got up, that's what I thought. That was like the first thing that I thought when the sun's shining in the windows or whatever. I thought, why am I seeing this? Why am I experiencing this when my child isn't here? Like it was just this weird parallel world that you never thought you were going to go into, like this other plane that just shouldn't exist basically. And it didn't make any sense because you're supposed to have a baby. You're supposed to be going through all these things. That's like a whole process of stuff and I know it's probably one of the layers of grief that somewhere in there isn't on the list, you know what I mean? Of like what we have to deal with daily, but it is something that I do notice that. And then it's great to find other lost parents and know you're not alone, because we always think we're alone. We always think we're the only person in the whole world that's ever lost a child. And so when you find those other people, especially the ones that it's been years for them. They have way more experience. They've got through like the darkest days and the darkest hours. Those people are like amazing. And you're like, they show you strength is what it is. But what I have noticed is some of us right at the beginning stages, maybe in the first 6 months, maybe in the first year, I would say you're still trying to process. And all of a sudden people around you think that they're going to throw like new lost families at you and you have to take care of them, but you can't even take care of yourself. And you're like so confused. And then you want to help them because they're a lost family too. But it's like, but you can't help them because you can't even help yourself. And so there is so many ways that this goes for us, of like, for anybody really. And everybody's trying to help everybody, but sometimes it becomes a little bit too much. And that's some of the stuff I've seen. And then it's taken years of me explaining my son's story that I have now, like, I love hearing people's stories because I know I trigger traumas for people. I know there's trauma that people have not dealt with, whether it was expectations of birth that ended up they had a C-section. And then they hear my story of not being fast enough to get a C-section and baby gone. And then they realize, wow, I got lucky and my kid might not be here. So it's like, those are triggers for people that they have to deal with trauma of what that was like, that they never thought about. Now their kid's like 3 or, whatever. And it's like, so I know I bring up traumas for people of like, that they didn't even think were a trauma. And it's actually, as my years have gone on, I actually prefer people to talk to me about it. But at the beginning, it was so hard because I had to process their stories and my own. And then, and a lot of it was there were so many intertwined stuff because we get so many people that have stories so similar to ours that come and share. And then you're like, oh my God, this is happening to babies everywhere. And you start it starts becoming even bigger and bigger and bigger of like the grief that you're taking on. And so, it's just one of those of like, it is hard of like, Meg, you said it perfectly, to be mindful of other people. And like, there's just that level of like respect we have to have for each other, like boundaries. And some of us don't even know what that is because we're grieving. And so people overstep those boundaries and you're like, whoa, and then you have to deal with that on top of whatever's going on. But I don't think that anybody ever really does anything on purpose unless they're a complete jerk. Then yes, okay, they did that on purpose. So, and
Yeah.
I think when people are trying their best, like we're trying our best, but I think also the more we talk about it, the more we share about our grief, our trauma, our pains, all these different things, and how to support each other is how we can better understand to support each other. Because I feel like that's one of the biggest things I've noticed over all the years talking to people. They have no idea how to even talk to any of us or how to support any of us. And sometimes it's just being there. We just need you to sit with us silently, like, and then sometimes it is, we're talkative and we want to hear your story and hear my story and we want to go back and forth. It's like, it's just being there and listening and paying attention to each other,
Well, it takes.
Yeah, it's taking the time to like understand what you need. Like I remember right after Carson died, my girlfriends came and I was my best friends for like the past, what year is it? 13 years, 14 years came. And I was showing them pictures and it was just breaking my heart. And they were carrying the grief with me. Like they sat there, they did all the right things. But then I was like, this isn't what I need. This isn't. And I was like, can we just laugh? Like, can we play Uno? Like, just be there for whatever they needed the moment. Like, sure, my daughter died 3 days ago. Me playing Uno and laughing probably isn't what people would expect, right? They would think she needs to be in bed, she needs to be covers up to her head, and she needs to be crying. And that is true. I did do that too. But in that, I just needed to feel something else, something other than like the all-encompassing like heartache. I just needed to laugh with my friends and remember that part of who I was before. Because, that's another thing is you forget or you lose so many pieces of yourself from before with this new existence, I guess.
Well, for the supporting thing, I think, like I tell my sons frequently, it's that P word, practice. That you don't get any better if you don't practice. I mean, you don't want opportunities to practice to show up, but it's one of those things where, I mean, at least online. I like watching the ebb and flow of interactions and seeing what people respond to, what they respond badly to. And sometimes they deserve to respond badly to it. But yeah, it's something that we should say, it is, again, like the C-section, this is something we can do. We can do hard things.
We can
support people who have, lost. And it's not as hard as we think. All you have to do is, practice, dump out, support in. And it's not that difficult. It just makes us uncomfortable to take on new challenges like that, especially when you've never really seen anyone model it for you.
I love making people uncomfortable. So, and I don't mean it like in a mean way. I mean it more like, I'm going to tell, if you ask me how many children I have, if I'm in a good place, the odds are I'm going to tell you I have 2. And if you proceed to ask about them, I'm going to tell you my kid died. And that's going to make you uncomfortable. But just like you said, that offers practice to everyone. It doesn't even have to be your family. It's just, one, if you're going to ask questions, be prepared for any answer you may get, because I'm not going to censor my daughter's life to make you comfortable. And it's excellent practice, because just like you said, we need that practice. You can't get better without it. You have to have those uncomfortable experiences where maybe you say the wrong thing. And it's okay. I don't want to hear it, but you can learn from it. And it's important that we do. You have to be uncomfortable to get comfortable.
I totally agree with that. Is that I know a lot of lost parents, depending on the day, they'll do exactly that. They'll share how many children they actually have. And if you keep asking, they'll tell you, I got this one that's this old, this one that's this old, and this one that's dead. Like they'll tell you how it is. And the reactions to people, like you could be at the grocery store and somebody asks you and stuff like that. I mean, I hear it all the time, like, like having a baby, they're like, what baby is this? And, whatever. And they want to, if you're going to ask a question, just be prepared that the answer might not be what you expect it to be. And, you know, and
Yeah.
it might be quite uncomfortable, and it does catch a lot of people off guard. But I think the same thing. I'm like, well, you gotta learn somehow. And I guess it's going to be me sharing that, like, you know, like there's bad stuff that happens in the world, and, you know, we're not all living in bubbles. And I get it with medical people too. A lot of nurses ask me questions that sometimes I'm like, you know, I don't know if these are really good questions to be asking everybody. I mean, maybe it's a generic one that you do on a form, but, you know, sometimes they're just like warming up, having a conversation with you. And then when you say, well, my baby died, they're like, oh, you know, I'm sorry. And they don't really know what to say, you know? So it's just kind of one of those, like, I think that's where the conversation starts and where things can go. And some people are very, very sweet about it. Some people are very kind, and you can tell, like, it's very painful for them to even hear that. And then some people just want to run away from you. Like,
Yeah.
They literally try to just get away from you as fast as possible, which is fine, because you know what I mean? And you're like, well, I don't have to say anything. I don't have to do anything.
Yeah, they're not your people.
This is good though, because I feel like there is a lot of us lost parents that don't really share on this topic. We don't really share very much about it because we are still learning sometimes ourselves, and, you know, and it's a lot. And so it's good to have, honestly, I think they're healthy conversations. That's how I feel about it, because it's good for us to explain how we feel about stuff, and then explain what we see being on the other side of the other giving end of what people give us. So I think it's good.